Oh, oh my gosh. Okay. Put my what? Okay, so I love Marvin Gaye. I know that was Mercy, Mercy Me. And it just made me feel very relaxed. And I know it was, it kind of went with, he wrote that song. It was kind of anti-Vietnam War. And I think that's kind of like what we're going through now with a lot of changes going on. And so I enjoyed it. And so this is what I drew. It doesn't make much sense, but I kind of did it with the beat of the music.
Okay. Okay. And so what you see here is in mindfulness. I found out in my research that mindfulness is even being used in the military now with sharpshooters. Think about they have to practice their breathing before they pull the trigger. Also, when you think about the basketball player, when you're shooting a free throw, your mind has to be completely clear. Football, quarterback getting ready to catch the ball, he's in the end zone, everybody's doing this, they have to practice mindfulness in that sense. So we also have to practice mindfulness as we go about our day. So I thought that was just a great way for us to get back started for our second session. So our objectives for today, we have a lot of objectives that we have to cover. Some of them, the counselors covered. I'm gonna go a little bit in depth with a few of them. And then we're gonna learn what it is to be an anti-racist educator and how to develop culturally relevant lessons, the effects of ACE, student trauma, and then learning the importance of SEL and equity in the classroom. So that's the lens that we're going to go through today. And I'm just gonna tell y'all a little story that happened to me just today. I had done my presentation last night, and then I did get a message saying, hey, you're working offline, but I was like, okay, it's still gonna save it. And so when I came into the office, when the council was doing their presentation, guess what, guys? My presentation was not there. Talk about stress. Talk about my fear. My cortisone levels probably out the roof because I'm like, I know I worked on this and it was here, So we're gonna talk about our SEL, all those things. My mind could not concentrate on anything else because I'm like, I had a presentation and I was ready for my presentation and it is not here. So, different things can cause us to have stress, and being able to manipulate the components of SEL will help us be able to get through this. That's why I had y'all checking in on the move wall, and I'm gonna figure out a way for us to do this virtually again. But it's very important that we just kind of are able to self-manage ourselves. So I'm SEL, do you really see me? Are you meeting my needs? That's what I want you to think about throughout this presentation. In our last presentation, we were talking about Mr. DeBoe's presentation. He was talking about, how much do you really know about the students that are with you? Do you just know their academic side? Do you know something personally about them? Do you know something about their family? And I was glad to hear a lot of people were making a commitment to learn more about students and their families. So what is SEL? SEL is a process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Those are the components for SEL. So I ran across this as I was doing my research, and they're talking about Maslow's before Bloom's. If you're not meeting my needs, I don't care about what you're trying to teach me. So we definitely have to take care of the whole child if we want our children to succeed. And looking at our demographics, guys, we have a huge population of low socioeconomic students, and we have to meet the needs for the students. That's why we're feeding our students on Thursdays. They come up and we feed over 1,000 families every week. That's physiological need has to be met. They have to feel safe. They have to feel loved. So we have to meet their needs before we can teach them what they need to know. And then this picture shows what trauma and brain development does. You know, developmental trauma, we're looking at survival before we're looking at learning. Okay, so there again, we have to meet our students' needs, and then they are able to learn what we want them to know. So social emotional learning, all learning is social and emotional. That's one thing we have to remember, because SEL is not a program. I know we have second step, but it has to do with your teaching also. Okay, so it's not just when we do advisory and we have second step that we're using as for our SEL. And SEL drives everything that we do. We're developing the whole child. That's what I want us to remember today. We are developing the whole child. So these are the competencies for SEL, and we'll talk about each of these in a minute. So the first two competencies that are in red have to deal with intrapersonal competencies, interpersonal relationships. You know, you being able to know yourself. So students have to be able to self-manage and be self-aware. When we say check in with the kids, that means self-awareness. If I feel like I'm about to blow my roof, then I need to be in control, right? And then the two competencies that are in blue are interpersonal skills. So these are skills that students need in order just to be successful socially. And then when we talk about decision making in the green, we have responsible decision making. This competency requires the knowledge and skills and attitudes needed to make constructive choices about personal behavior and social interaction in a diverse setting. So the council talked about the ACE survey. So the ACE is Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's landmark research that clearly linked traumatic experiences in childhood with 7 of 10 leading causes of death and reduced life expectancy. While the research tells us our health is impacted by trauma, we also know it's never too late to heal those wounds. They also talked about being resilient. And so what we're gonna do right now in a minute, we're gonna actually take the ACE test. 3 types of ACEs: abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. As you're taking this assessment, I want you to think about our students. You know, whereas I took the ACE test, I scored low on it. I didn't have a lot of trauma in my childhood. However, when we think about our students and the world that they live in now, we have to reflect on, you know, maybe something's going on deeper. Not that we would give this to our students, because we're not psychologists where we can go in and actually assess our kids on this. However, this is just for a thought about what our students may be going through or may have gone through. I did this survey with my husband, and he has experienced a lot of trauma in his childhood that kind of still messes with him today. So what we're gonna do on this next slide, I want you to take this ACE survey. It is totally anonymous. It has nothing to do with this school. It's gonna score it for you on the screen. So if you have your QR code, you can click the QR code. Mr. DeBose put the URL in the chat. And I want you to take about, it shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to take the ACE survey. So at this time, if you go ahead and go in and take the ACE survey for me, please. Mr. DeBose, is anybody having problems accessing it?
Not from what I'm seeing so far. I placed it in the chat.
Thank you. I have about another minute. Now, you should have gotten a score, and I don't need to know what your score was, but it's just a reflection for you. You know, sometimes the trauma that we've suffered spill over into our classrooms or into our everyday lives, and we act a certain way. So you just want to be mindful of your emotions as well. So what the research says is the greater number of ACEs, there's a direct link between childhood trauma and adult onset of chronic diseases, such as depression, suicide, being violent, and a victim and emotional problems. So we just kind of have to take those things into consideration when we are looking at the students who are in front of us. You know, do we really see who is in front of us? And then as a result of this, if you're feeling any kind of emotions that come up after you have taken this exam, there is the Employee Systems Program, and the numbers here. You guys will get this if you need to talk to someone about maybe some adverse childhood experience that you have had. We're gonna listen at this short clip of Dr. Nadine Burke's, maybe. Hold on.
We now understand better than we ever have before how exposure to early adversity affects the developing brains and bodies of children. It affects areas like the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure and reward center of the brain that is implicated in substance dependence. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is necessary for impulse control and executive function, a critical area for learning. And on MRI scans, we see measurable differences in the amygdala, the brain's fear response center. So there are real neurologic reasons why folks exposed to high doses of adversity are more likely to engage in high-risk behavior, and that's important to know. But it turns out that even if you don't engage in any high-risk behavior, you're still more likely to develop heart disease or cancer. The reason for this has to do with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the brain's and body's stress response system that governs our fight or flight response. How does it work? Well, imagine you're walking in the forest and you see a bear. Immediately, your hypothalamus sends a signal to your pituitary, which sends a signal to your adrenal gland that says, release stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. And so your heart starts to pound, your pupils dilate, your airways open up, and you are ready to either fight that bear or run from the bear. And that is wonderful if you're in a forest and there's a bear. But the problem is what happens when the bear comes home every night. And this system is activated over and over and over again. And it goes from being adaptive or life-saving to maladaptive or health-damaging. Children are especially sensitive to this repeated stress activation because their brains and bodies are just developing. High doses of adversity not only affect brain structure and function, They affect the developing immune system, developing hormonal systems, and even the way our DNA is read and transcribed.
So here's an example of what she was talking about. As you can see, and our students, they haven't developed it enough to be able to think through their actions before they actually respond. And so the fight or flight is automatically on. You know, when you're talking to kids in the hallway or something happens, they're already acting on that impulse, you know. And so that's one of the things that's why I'm so passionate about SEL, because I want to make sure that we're helping our kids to be able to think logically through situations before they react. You know, and some of us, sometimes our first response is on impulse instead of thinking through the situation before we make a response. So what happens when children are overloaded with stress? They can't learn in school. They have difficulty trusting adults, difficulty developing healthy relationship with peers, and or turn to available biochemical solutions such as alcohol or drugs or other escape activities. So that may be why we have quite a few students that are, you know, turning to drugs, they're turning to alcohol. They're, you know, we've had several cases where kids are trying to commit suicide. You've also had that kid who can't even hold a relationship with any friends. You know, you have some students who don't have any friends. I can think of about 2 or 3 students right now who are just solo because they cannot maintain healthy friendships with their peers. And then the other, difficulty trusting adults. That's why it's important for us to build relationships with students so that they can trust us. Remember, Maslow before Bloom's. So childhood trauma isn't something you just get over as you grow up. The repeated stress of abuse, neglect, and parents struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues has real tangible effects on the development of the brain. So we really have to look at that, which causes PTSD. This is something else that I just associated with veterans, you know, but our kids could have PTSD as well from the stress and trauma that they have to face every day. In the research, it says 1 in 8 children suffer enough trauma that has a lasting effect. The lifespan of students who have faced trauma is 20 years shorter than their counterparts. This trauma can last a lifetime, and it changes the development of the brain. So, you know, depending on where your ACE score is, you know, you too could have PTSD. And we have to make sure that we take care of that. You know, we need to seek help if we are having trauma that is, you know, it may not be job related, but we also have to seek help to make sure that we're ready to be in front of students when we are on the floor teaching them. PTSD is a disorder where learned fear due to a traumatic event becomes generalized to situations that would normally be considered safe and result in automatic hyperarousal in inappropriate situations. So always remain in control of your emotions. You know, I've had it happen before too. You know, we blow up. But is that appropriate? It's not appropriate for us to blow up, and definitely not blowing up in front of kids or to children, because there again, we're causing that stress, that traumatic stress for them, because, you know, you don't want to be the bear in their lives where they're fight or flight. So we have to be very careful and remain in control at all times. When we can talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. So the way that we help kids get through this and the way we get through this is called resilience. Our counselors talked about this earlier today, and there is a whole research on resilience. So I'm just going to go through a few things about being resilient, and then we'll talk about some of the things that we can do. That's why our SEL lessons are important, because we can help kids build up resilience. You know, our brains are plastic, and so we can mend it back together and rewire it, but with help. So resilience is the bounce back ability of individuals who return to the similar shape, form, and condition after misfortune, harm, or injury. Our brains and lives are plastic. With support, situations can change over time. And then relationship that can protect them, preventing stress from happening, or soothing. So that's how we can help kids. It's important that we build those relationships with them, that we find out about their families, that we know what they're interested in, that we pull some of those things into our lessons so that we can help our students to be whole again, so we can meet their needs. What can you do? Glad you asked. You can greet your students by name every day. I heard in the chat, some people said that was it. That's what their commitment was going to be for the first week, to learn their students' name. It is so important that you know students' names, that you know them. Like, do you really see me? Am I here? That makes all the world of difference to students, that you greet them by their name. And then in turn, they should not call you miss. They should know your name as well. It's just a level of respect. Check in with your students using a mood meter. You know, you could do something like I did with you guys this morning with the Padlet, or you can use the little form I did with you guys before we left. When we first went out in COVID, we had the Google form that I was using with you guys to check in with a student. Or now you have All in Learning has AirPads now, where you can give the kids a clicker, so you could create a slide with the mood and they can choose A, B, C, or D. Okay, so there are a number of ways, but you should always start off the class checking in with your students to see where they are. It may be they had a bad day. They may not want to talk about it right now, but at least you know what you're dealing with the students. So if they've had some stress during the day, are they going to really want to learn? Absolutely not, because they're dealing with something. But that doesn't mean that we're going to give them a scapegoat. We're going to give them some time to process, and then we're going to move on, okay? So checking in with our students is great. Knowing your students' mannerisms. You know, kids happy-go-lucky, and all of a sudden they're all the way down, you know, the bottom, not participating, then you should know, hey, something's going on here. You know, because during this pandemic, the research has said that, you know, students are suffering more traumatic experiences. The child abuse rate is up, and, you know, families have lost jobs, you know. So if my power is being turned off, or, you know, we may not be able to afford the internet right now. You know, anything could be going on with our students. We have, you know, a large amount of people here in Dallas County who are facing eviction. You know, I know there's a stay now until December, but still that has to be in the forefront of students' minds, that, hey, we may not be able to stay here any longer. So our kids and parents are dealing with a lot of things throughout this pandemic. But so we have to just make sure that we are sensitive and we have empathy for our students and their needs and their family needs. And also, you know, one of the things that I was reading in research of one of my PDs, it was talking about maybe the kid can't turn the camera on. Okay, so we can't be a stickler for certain things because we don't know. The house may not be clean. Mom may not be dressed appropriately. Kid may not have any clothes washed to put on. So we have to just take case by case situations. But, you know, let's not just be a stickler for the rules that we have, because our stuff is together. everybody's stuff is not together during this time. And so we need to be mindful of that. Like I said, remain in control of every situation. Have empathy. Be culturally responsive in your lessons. There's lots of current events going on now that we can pull in, to our lessons for our Black and our Brown students. Okay, just being aware of being woke, as they say, about what's going on, and bringing those things into our lessons, or bringing different cultures into our lessons. And making sure that everybody is represented when we're teaching. Seek guidance on how to deal with situations. Get to know your students. Do an interest survey. You guys know how to create a Google form, or there may be one out there already that you can just adapt for yourself. But get to know something about your kids, and then that way that helps to facilitate conversations also. And then most importantly, check in with yourself daily, okay? You have to know where you are in order to be able to teach students appropriately and effectively. If you're having a bad day, that's gonna spill over into your classroom, whether you realize it or not. That's why it's important that you know, hey, I'm having a bad day today, so I gotta watch my responses to my students so that you don't snap a kid, or that you don't, talk back, or how we get when we be short. You don't want to be short with your students. You want to make sure that you're giving them your best self every day. Every day we have to give them our best self. And use mindfulness practices. I have this little thing on my watch called Mindful, and it just rung a few minutes ago to remind me to check in with myself. So just a little quick something, anything, so that you are aware of where you are, and hey, I might need to take a break, and then I'm gonna come back. Okay. Second step, we have our second step program that we are using as a holistic approach to building supportive communities for every student through social emotional learning. We had that program last year, and we did pretty good as a campus. I'm gonna show you some data on that, how we did as a campus with using that. But imagine if we used it across the board, every day, all the time, how much more we would be building the whole child. Some other things that we can do. Can y'all still see my screen? Okay, so we have our secondary weekly community meetings. So we can do community meetings. Okay, these stems, I'm gonna put this in your in the drive as well. Okay, and then some other things that we can do. Morning meetings. Okay, it might not be morning. We might have to do just a little bit here and there, but just checking in with the students. So let's say right now I'm feeling blank, and then every kid has a round to tell how they're feeling, if they would like to participate. I was really happy when. So these are just some sentence starters that you can use with your students to just facilitate the conversation. I know when we come back, we'll be doing those with our advisory kids. However, we need to make sure that our kids know that we are thinking about them and that we are here to assist them and help them. And then there are some sample teaching activities through CASEL that I will also give to you. And it's just some little sample lessons here on things that we can do about feelings as well to help promote SEL. And then implement the program with fidelity. This is what I was talking with you guys about. So 6th grade was really good about implementing our SEL programs. 6th grade did it. I mean, every time I went to check, majority of the 6th grade teachers were doing the lessons. I think we had 2 or 3 6th grade teachers that completed the whole advisory program during that time. 7th grade, you guys completed lessons at about 50%. And I know we left, in March, but still, you guys were doing it when I walked around majority of classes were participating. And then 8th grade, we have a lot of work to do, with implementing this program with fidelity. If we implement this program with fidelity, we would definitely be helping to create and build the whole child, because it goes through all of those competencies for SEL, for social emotional learning. So this is a video from about restorative practices.
Restorative discipline is a chance for the students to build a relationship with the teachers. And what we're hoping is, if a student has a relationship with the teacher, a lot of the issues that come across as classroom management and classroom discipline can be solved with the teacher and student. So that's really what we're trying to do. Are students still going to act up and be students? Absolutely. But if we can reduce the amount of time that students are sent to the office for discipline reasons, that's more time in the classroom that they have a chance to learn. The heart of restorative discipline is the circles in the classroom. What we want is the teacher to ask questions. We want the students to respond to the questions using a talking piece. That way we keep order in the circle, and it lets the students get whatever's inside of them out, and it gives the teacher a chance to hear what the students are going through.
I'm going to remind you of the circle guidelines. Feel free to share what you want to share. Listen from your heart. Make sure that you're respecting other people in this circle. What happens in circles stays in circle. My particular students, some of them are a little reluctant to learn, and so I think this could provide me with strategies that help me motivate them.
What is absolutely the best thing that happened this week? Andrew, you would like to start?
We're 96% LEP and 98% economically disadvantaged. So we may not have the huge discipline issues that some campuses do, but I do find that this is a way that they're building relationships with their classmates as well as their teachers.
When we try.
And so when we look at the circle time, that was done right here in Dallas ISD and at a middle school. A lot of times there are circle time and it's an elementary campus. But there are middle school students who were sharing in circle. And I know we have some teachers who are trained here with restorative discipline, and then that will be something that we can move to, but we can cut down the discipline. We can help Mr. DeBose out in his job with his team by just listening to students and giving them an avenue to talk about their feelings and helping them to build self-control and to have empathy and to be self-aware. So those are some things that we can do. And also there's something Coach DeGroot been trying to get going for a long time, and it's called brain breaks.
Breaks during the school day aren't just downtime. The research shows that well-timed breaks can increase student productivity, creativity, and social skills. In fact, a groundbreaking 2012 study using brain scans revealed that the brain isn't actually at rest when we take breaks. Instead, it's in default mode, a state where the brain works on other tasks crucial to learning, like making sense of complex information, consolidating memories, and finding novel connections. Without breaks, we simply don't learn as well. So, make them frequent. Breaks allow students of all ages to regain focus and are especially important for very young students. One study showed that for elementary kids, several 10-minute lessons were far more effective than fewer 30-minute ones. Plan for repeated pauses throughout the day, fewer as kids get older, and give students time to process their learning. Make them active. Integrating physical activity into your breaks can boost moods, reboot motivation, and improve cognitive functioning. If you can, make time in the day for several quick exercise or movement breaks to help students reset. Make them social. Breaks don't have to be solitary or structured. Giving students time to interact, for example during an unstructured recess or a planned game, can improve crucial social skills like conflict resolution, collaboration, and group problem solving. Make them creative. Breaks allow kids to use their imagination. Research shows that unstructured play stimulates curiosity and creative thinking. A bonus, the exercise kids get during recess boosts neural connectivity and promotes growth in the hippocampus, the center of learning and memory.
Okay, so when we talk about brain breaks for us, it could be just having those few minutes for kids to think about their learning and then discussing it with somebody else, or it could be them just standing up, giving a big stretch, and then sitting back down. So just something to break up the monotony in the classroom. It's just like you probably right now, you need a break. You need to woosah and consolidate this information that you have learned, but our students, they're on rapid fire, they're used to getting stuff in an instant, and then we take forever and ever and ever. And then now at the end of the day, in the class period, I want you to tell me what you learned about for the day. Okay, so let's get with Coach DeGrew. And he has lots of activities for brain breaks. Of course, we can Google them as well, but just some quick little breaks to help our students to just stay focused and stay on task. So right now, we're getting ready to talk about SEL and equity. So you've seen this picture today already. Equity refers to the quality of being fair and impartial. We talk about equality, everybody has the same thing, they're equal. But then some kids need a little bit more to help them to be successful. And we have to be able to give them that so that they can be successful. Social equity is the active commitment to fairness, justice, and equality. Equity is about understanding needs and providing those with the greatest needs additional opportunities so that they can achieve parity. Implicit biases. When we talk about equity, we want to check ourselves first, okay? So we want to, sometimes, we have these biases that we just bring over. They're unconscious, they're in your subconscious, and it just comes out, And implicit biases refers to attitudes, stereotypes that affect our understanding, action, and decisions in an unconscious manner, meaning they are just there. It's favorable or unfavorable assessments are activated involuntary and without an individual's awareness or intentional control. And it resides deep in our subconsciousness. And so I'm going to be honest about something that happened in my neighborhood. I used to live in a predominantly white neighborhood. We were one of 5 Black families on the street. And so when I was coming home one day and I saw some Black students, some Black kids walking down the street, pants hanging down, and my automatic thought was, oh, there goes the neighborhood, And so that's my bias, I'm just going to be honest. And then, after I thought about it, I'm like, wow, it's great that more Black families are able to buy homes and are able to move in the area. But I did have that bias because those pants was hanging down. And so I'm like, oh, wow, look at what's coming in this neighborhood. So we all have biases, okay? Implicit biases causes feelings and attitudes about other people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance. And they are pervasive. Everyone has them. Everybody has a bias, whether you want to be honest or not. Let's see. What if she walked in your church? What would you think? What would you say? If you saw this group of kids hanging on the corner, would you want to walk past them? Would you clutch your purse a little closer to you? Sagging pants, what would you think? Homeless person. What would you think? What do you think when you pass a homeless person? Or an unkept child, What are your thoughts when you see a kid looking like this? So what I want you to do right now is, it's in the chat because this writing is funky. But we're going to do a pause everywhere. And you're going to text 37607 to TMoppin005. Mr. DeBose has put in the chat, or you can click here. What other implicit biases or prejudices do you have? I said it at anonymous, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is set at anonymous. So you can type in what you want to in the chat. I won't know who it came from. So go ahead and text 37607 to TMoppin005 for me. I'm gonna give you a few minutes, about a minute, to put your responses in. Yeah, I know it works because I put this one here and that one there, so. Okay, okay, it's coming through, it's coming through. All right, all right. Awesome. Come on, we have about 100 people on this line. I should have 100 responses. Okay, sagging pants. Okay, black people. Come on, we should have more responses. Come on. Hispanics can't play football. Okay. What are some more biases that you have? All boys to carry heavy items. Okay, okay. I need a strong boy to carry this. I'm guilty of that. Sagging pants, women, breasts overexposed. Okay, black people are ghetto. Okay, all black people are good at sports. Natural hair is not professional. White people can't dance. White people can't jump. Okay, there was a movie with that one. Black people make good barbecue. Saggy pants. Okay, okay. Young teachers can lead. You can. Wet hair on white people is ugh. Okay, hoodies again. Can't. Okay. Awesome. Y'all can keep them coming. All right. So right now, we're gonna move into reading an article, how to be an anti-racist educator. So Mr. DeBose has that in the chat, or you can use your QR code to scan it on your phone. So you can look it up either on your phone or, hold on, Mr. DeBose, I need to go back one more. Yes, right here. Here we go. So here's the article for how to be an anti-racist educator. So go ahead and download that, and I'm gonna give you about 4 minutes to read. It's a quick read, and then we'll once you've read that, then what you're going to do is go to the Padlet, and you're gonna type in either the bit.ly or you can scan. And I want you to put at least 2 commitments you will make the school year to become an anti-racist educator, and respond to 2 other people in that chat on the Padlet, okay? So Mr. DeBose, you can drop both of those in the Padlet. So the first one is going to be the actual article that you're going to read, and then you're gonna respond to the article in the Padlet at this time. So I'm starting my timer now. Okay, we have responses before we read, so let's read the article and then we're going to respond. And I left it anonymous, so you don't have to put your name there. It will automatically come up anonymous. But I do want you to respond to at least 2 other people once you have posted your response. Okay. It should be in the chat also. Mr. DeBose?
Yeah, so I posted it in the chat. I'll repost it. It was the article I'm reposting now, and then I'll post the Padlet also.
Okay, all right. Here's the link for the article. Or you can scan with your QR code reader. Okay. Speak when you see it. We have about a minute longer. And guys, when you add to someone, when you comment, you're actually going to click on their link and then type in your comment. Where it says add comment, you click there and add the comment to their post. So you're going to connect with your colleagues that way. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Can you guys see the board?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm just gonna scroll through so you can kind of read some of the comments that were made. Some people didn't complete their thoughts, but what happens? When I see racism do something, and just understanding that it is not okay to turn a blind eye anymore, saying it's not my problem or someone else. Awesome. The article talks about how educators should talk about race with their students. It's simple. Acknowledge the problem of white supremacy and do your best at dismantling the aspects of it. Awesome. Thank you guys for responding to the Padlet as well. All right. So now we're going to talk about equity and SEL. So here again, to complete the whole child, we have to look at how these two go hand in hand. So SEL competencies can support the development of justice-oriented global citizens. Competencies promote intrapersonal, interpersonal, and cognitive skills, cognitive knowledge, skills, and attitudes that support lifelong success. SEL can minimize negative impacts of cultures that are marginalized. Promotes greater understanding of different cultures, power dynamics, supports students and adults in building relationships, interacting with others across diverse backgrounds. So here again, we're going to look at these 5 competencies again, but through an equity lens, okay? And first is self-awareness. Understanding your emotions, personal identify, and goals and values. Accurately assessing your strengths and limitations, having a positive mindset, possessing a well-grounded sense of self-efficacy and optimism. So through SEL, through the competencies, our SEL's lesson, we can understand links between personal and social cultural identities. This is the equity piece. Examine what it means to belong to a group, including race, how race impacts one's sense of self and beliefs. Recognize biases and understanding how thoughts, feelings, and actions are interconnected. Also, self-awareness grounds oneself in and affirm cultural heritage. It's important for students of color, reduce physiological distress and risky behaviors, protect against negative health and impacts of racial discrimination, promote a range of positive social and emotional outcomes with school engagement. It's self-management, regulating your emotions, stress management, self-control, self-motivation, setting and achieving goals. Self-management, cope with the stress of adapting to school culture, cope with discrimination and prejudice, develop a sense of agency, identify societal challenges, and pursue individual and collective solutions to our problems. Social awareness, the ability to take the perspective of those with the same and different backgrounds and cultures and to empathize and feel compassion. That is something that we definitely need to work on, ourselves and with our students. On the social awareness, the equity part of it is understanding social norms for behavior in diverse settings. Recognize family, school, and community resources and supports. Recognize and examine potential competing cultural and racial related messages and expectations, and explore the importance of different types of diversity in classroom, school, and community. Building relationship skills involves relationship skills with diverse individuals and groups, communicating clearly, working cooperatively, resolving conflict, and seeking help. When we build our lessons, how much time do we have allocated for students to work together? How much time do we have open-ended problems for students to solve? And not just in math, but also it could be in social studies, it could be in science. It's an open-ended activity for students to do, and then have them figure out. We need to build those skills with students. And then when students have conflict, do we sit them down and have them to kind of come up with, how can we resolve this? I know when I had students in my office that were having issues, I listened at one side, then we listen at the other side, then we listen together, and then we come up with a way to solve this problem. How much time do we really give to students to help them to solve their own problems, So, and I know I'm guilty of sending them to the counselor. I'll send them there and let them conflict resolute, but we have to also take out time to try to help students resolve conflicts, or teach them how to resolve conflict. And how can we do that? There's a chapter in that second step, okay, that works on conflict resolution and building relationship skills. Being responsible decision makers. Consider the well-being of self and others, responsibility to behave ethically. Base decisions on safety, social and ethical considerations, evaluate realistic consequences of actions, and then making constructive, safe choices everywhere. So that is like at the highest level of blooms for students to be able to make responsible decisions and then think through, if I do this, what are going to be my consequences? You know, we have to teach students how to think that way, because remember, their brain's not developed to think logically before they respond, okay? So we have to help to build that for them. And then responsible decision making, engage in initiatives and co-create solutions that are inclusive, equitable, and mutually supportive. Assess the impact of personal beliefs and biases. Reflect on how actions taken by people impact equity. And make caring, constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions in diverse settings. Our SEL competencies. In what ways can you incorporate SEL competencies into your lesson? Here again, you're going to use the same thing. You can text 37607 to TMoppin005. Mr. DeBose, you have that in the chat?
I'm on it right now.
Okay. You can just use the same text message that you text the last thing to, guys. 37607 to TMoppin005 is at the top of the screen here. How can you incorporate SEL competencies into your lessons? Okay, have a roundtable discussion. Okay, there are 96 people on. Come on. Come through, come through. Having classroom discussions. Come through, come through. It's like Facebook Live. Come on, come on. Share with your neighbor. Come on. Establishing brain breaks for students to reflect on what they just learned. Circles, advisory, setting safe boundaries. Okay. Brain breaks. I see that twice. Come on, we should have 96 responses. Brain breaks. Okay. Do a circle. Okay. Acknowledge and identities. Okay. We'll take a few more. And then you guys can still respond, respond to the poll. All right, that was our 1 minute. See, restorative practices. All right, so we're about to wrap up here. And what I want us to look at, I know there's a lot of information that we have to digest and figure out how we're going to make it our work in the classroom. But like I said at the beginning, all learning is SEL. So we're constantly teaching students how to exhibit the 5 competencies of social emotional learning every day. Every day is a learning situation for our students. If we do what we said here, we're developing the whole child. We're developing the total child with the way that we're conducting our classes. So yes, we want to get whatever grade on the STAR test, but we have children in front of us, and our children have needs. And if we take care of the needs of the students, the learning is going to come. But if the students still have these learning deficiencies, these emotional deficiencies, then are they really learning? You know, if we go back to the Maslow before Bloom's, okay? So just remember, we have to take time to take care of our kids' needs. So our reality and equity, remember, you check in with yourself before starting the day. Check in with your students it is important that, again, you know how you're showing up each day, and then we need to know how they're showing up each day. And then our students with disabilities and our ESL students may need accommodations, you know. As we are developing our lessons, we need to think about that. And we need not just think about it, but we also need to plan for those students as well. So there again, we have to know our students. We have to know how they learn. We have to know how best to help them to be successful. We have students who you know, do not understand English very well. How are we working with those students, especially those of us who have ESL students in our classroom? Are we just teaching to everybody who's there? In my training, there was a video of a ESL student in the classroom, barely spoke any English, barely understood any English, and the teacher was just teaching her heart out to everybody who could understand her. But that child was left behind. And if we keep leaving students behind like that, we're setting them up for failure. So what supports are we going to put in to help all students to be successful? Students not meeting grade level standards, you know, what are we going to do for those kids? We know who they are already. They're the ones who don't want to respond. They're the ones who sit back in the bag and they're quiet and they're invisible, so they think. But we have to make them visible. We have to help to meet their needs. We have to use a variety of ways to engage students and families. Okay, so you've learned quite a few ways to engage just today. And then also, how are we engaging the families in this as well? What are we doing to connect with the students' families as well? Remember in Mr. DeVoe's presentation, we should know something about the family. We should know something about the kid personally, and we should know more than just about their academics. And then other things we're going to learn a little later, I think tomorrow, about choice. Okay, give students choice in assignments. Allow students to demonstrate their learning in a variety of ways. We know that we have to have an exit ticket, but how else can students demonstrate their learning? Be considerate of family finances when assigning projects. When you assign a project, make sure it's nothing that kids have to go out and buy, because some families are stretched thin already. You know, we may not be stretched thin because we were allowed to still get a paycheck while we were teaching from home. However, some families lost jobs, you know. So we need to be considerate of family finances when we are assigning projects for students to do. It should be something that they have at the house already, and create projects that families can do together. That's something one way we can pull the family into the education setting is having them to do projects with their kid. So, do you really see me? Are you meeting my needs? We will hope that our students will say yes. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. And I'll put this presentation in the classroom. If you have any questions, email me, okay? Let's make it a great day. Ms. Ellis will be on in a little bit.
All right. Well, we do want to thank Ms. Moppin. If you can, in the chat, go ahead and say how thankful you were for that information. It was a lot, but it was very, very important, and it's going to be very important this school year. So thank you, Ms. Moppin. If you are following the schedule, we do have our next session at 3 o'clock. So it is 2:35. Ms. Moppin blessed you all and ended a little early. So that's a good thing for you all. We're going to stay on schedule. So you all have a little longer break. So we'll be on time, everybody, at 3 o'clock to the session hosted by Ms. Ellis. So thank you all. We'll see you all shortly. you.